Can you please introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Stephanie Cameron and I'm the Deputy Mayor of the Meander Valley.
Why did you enter politics?
That's a good question. I probably had never had a desire to enter politics, and I've never really thought about entering council as being entering politics. I always thought about it as helping your community. But I think what really spurred me on was quite a few years ago. I helped out in an election campaign and I loved it. I was out talking to people all the time and listening to the issues and finding out what was important. And it was around the time of the 2018 local government elections. And I remember looking at who was on council at the time, all great people. I don't want to sound disrespectful to them all, but I felt, there's such a difference there. There was no one at the table my age. There were very few females at the table. And I thought, actually, I think I could probably contribute to that. So here I am, about 5 years later.
What are some of the values that are most important to you?
I talk a lot about my family, about hard work, reward for effort. I guess I'm relatively old-fashioned in a lot of ways like that, but I like listening to people and hearing what's important and trying to help them.
And when you're not at council, what do you do?
I live on a farm at Chudley with my husband Clinton and my two kids. They're 8 and 5, so pretty busy. The farm's really busy at the moment. We've just finished lambing, about to start marking lambs. So a lot of that. My husband's a plumber full-time as well. Yeah, hectic. Looking after the kids, looking after the farm, council. Actually, council never stops. People say to me, oh, is it one day a week? It's Tuesdays I allow for, but it's every day. My kids will always say, are you on the phone? Yep, always on the phone.
How would you describe your experience on council so far?
Yeah, it's been amazing, I think. It's been such a learning curve, and I look back to what I was like in those first few years, and we've had a few changes with council, with general managers and things like that, and I feel really proud of what we've achieved, and I guess proud of myself to have grown a lot on council, but I really enjoy it. It's good.
And you mentioned being slightly different to some of the other councillors now and maybe in the past. How do you think it's been different as a woman?
Yeah, this council now that we have, the makeup of this council is quite different. We've got some really young people, lots of really different backgrounds. It is a really good council. I really enjoy it. Several years ago, and probably when people reflect a lot of time, years ago, and they'd reflect on what a council would be like, and it had this image of 65-year-old men. And actually, if you look in the council chambers and you look back 20 years, that's probably what it was. And I think a lot of younger people didn't see it as a place for them, but it really is. And you look at this last election and councils across the state, there's young people everywhere entering into the council table, and we're much better for it.
Are there any councillors or other people within council that you work closely with? Or
I think all our councillors are fantastic. They all do a really good job, and they really do. You have councillors that you think to yourself sometimes, oh, I can see where they'll go, or I probably don't need to talk to that person about that because I know what they'll do, or someone else. But a good counsellor is someone that will be prepared to change their mind and prepared to listen. And I think we have a lot of that here at Meander Valley, so that makes me really happy.
Are there any particular projects that you want to see in Meander Valley?
I'm the toilet police. I spend my whole time talking at council about toilets and opening more public toilets, but I'm really excited. In my time on council, we've seen the toilets at Hagley reopened. We're just having a new one built at Carrick. It's just opened. There'll be another one in Alveston Drive next to the pump track, which I think will really help that to be a really good space for kids, because when I first got on council, I had one and I was pregnant with the other, and I remember thinking, why are we having playgrounds without toilets? Like, where do kids go? Like, you don't take your kid to the playground and then 2 seconds after you get there have to leave. My fellow councillors will laugh because I cheer at toilets. But a really big issue we do need to deal with at council is what we do with our waste, and rubbish removal and the tip sites are a huge challenge for us. That's something I'm quite interested in, but it is a very challenging space.
You ran in the state election recently. Do you have more plans on state, federal politics, or?
So I ran in the previous state election and this election just gone, and I think that they've both been really good experiences for me, and probably I learnt more from that. It's been really helpful, the things that I learnt in that space, to be able to bring back to council. Whether or not I run again, I just don't know. It really depends on the circumstances at the time, and I really felt after the election earlier this year, I've quite enjoyed being at home with my kids a lot more, and enjoying them and enjoying the farm and trying to get some stuff done there. But I like helping people, and so I get really frustrated if I can see an issue and I want to be able to help them. I mightn't be able to solve their issue, but I want to be able to help them find a person to talk to that might have the relevant skills or things like that. So that's what I like doing. So if I can keep doing that in this role or elsewhere, then that's what I'd like to do.
What's your favourite part of the Meander Valley?
All of it. You can't have a favourite. I grew up on Oaks Road, between Carrick and Bracknell. I lived 10 years in Delarang. I've been 5 years nearly now in Chudley. I went to school in Prospect Vale. I love it all. There's so many different things about it, and we're lucky. We have and the best thing about being in Lions and working the full electorate. Oh God, Meander Valley's the best. It's just the best. Every part of it, and our people, it's the best. But yeah, I have quite soft spots for Carrick and Hagley and places like that where I spent a lot of time in my childhood.
Do you still have family in the valley?
Yeah, a lot of my sister-in-laws, mother-in-law. Yeah, my parents have just moved to Port Sorell, which was really quite sad for me. And they sold the farm, which was, really quite traumatic time actually. But last time someone asked me about that, I cried. So you've done well. But yeah, my whole family, we've lived here my whole lives and generations before. My grandparents are Jack and Jessie Pern that had Pern Steamwell there up the road. So that was my unofficial childcare growing up. Mum worked at Tasouts. She dropped us off at Nan and Pop's, and we probably got up to a heap of mischief at Steamworld all day, and she picked us up on the way home.
You've got siblings then?
I've one sister, yeah.
Gotcha.
She just lives in Longford, but always been connected to the Meander Valley. Always have been. I'm very lucky to be able to represent it.
Obviously there's been quite a few changes over time. What have you seen? What have you particularly noticed?
We've still got the best people. And I reflect a lot on the storms that we had a few weeks ago now, and the damage that did to particularly Hadspen and Carrick and Hagley, but the people just willing to help all the time. I had so many messages all the time of, can I do this to help, or where can I go for this, or how can I help this person or that person, and we're still the best people. We're very lucky.
What are your thoughts on council amalgamations?
So we went through a pretty big process with that. Amalgamation, strictly, no. It's the best part about our community is the representation that we have here at the community, the people in our office. Like I say, you won't find better. But there are things, as 29 councils, it's a lot, and there needs to be some measures for how they operate. And there are a lot of things we can share, and I do look at even emergency response that we had recently. Our council were working their absolute backsides off to do the day-to-day business. Meanwhile, they also had the emergency response hat on, and it was tricky. And the things like that we can share. We do share things out and about in the field with other councils, the street sweeper man and all of those sorts of things. But there are other things we could share. HR, policies. We don't need 29 policies on things. We don't need 29 HR departments. There are things that we can share, and I think we need to do a better job at looking at some of those things, realistically.
In terms of tourism to the Meander Valley, there are some projects that are going on with the Western Tiers and some of the walks and whatnot. Do you see other aspects of the Meander Valley that can promote tourism, or are you involved in the tourism side of things?
Yes, we all are on council, but we need to do a better job at it. We are the best, but the difficulty is getting those people off the highway and stopping here. So supporting things like AgFest and the craft fair and a lot of those other things that bring people to our town, and we want them to stay. So we want them to stay a bit longer. So we do a lot of work there to support them, but I know a lot of smaller tourism businesses struggle a little bit and do need a little bit of help, but I believe council's role is to help advocate for them to be able to get the knowledge and the support that they need. But everywhere I go I talk about Meander Valley, so and I think everyone that lives here does too. So
often short stay accommodation is relatively full in some areas of the Meander Valley. Do you think that planning and greater development is something that might be on the agenda in the future?
Yeah, look, people have to have something to do when they come here to help support different events and things like that, to be able to people to the town over and above other things. Tassie's great, so we don't necessarily have a problem with getting people to Tassie, but it's getting them here, and they do need somewhere to stay, and people are looking at different experiences as well. They're not necessarily interested in a motel. They might want a more boutique kind of accommodation. There's a lot of that happening in Deloraine, really. People talk about maybe bringing some of those kind of things to Westbury, and I think it's great. It would be a great idea for the community.
There has been talk about trains again in Tasmania.
Oh.
Do you have any thoughts on
passenger
trains?
train?
Yeah.
Look, that would be a good idea in theory, but I don't know the reality whether or not it would work. I think it was I've got to say very far down the track, but that would be funny if I said that. That would be a difficult thing to make it work. Some people are really passionate about that. And like I say, in theory, it sounds great, but I think the reality is it's a lot more difficult. But they could stop at Westbury, just around here. Be very happy to welcome